This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. Just a quick overview of what we plan to cover today. I'm going to look at a little bit of blended learning in the 21st century, what that means to us, and then I'm going to move quickly on to the key topic that we are all here to talk about today, which is remote learning in crisis. There are a number of areas that I'm going to focus on, and I hope to be able to do this within the hour. I will look at understanding ourselves and students, understanding the school that we work for, the kind of technology that we want to use or we have to use or we have used, the content that we are going to be presenting or delivering, and of course the assessments. So I will start with a quick question, not an audio participation, so please kindly keep your mics muted. The question is, how would you describe your students? What I have done is in the chat, I have included a link to a Padlet. If you could just take a moment to go up to the Padlet and put in your comments. How does Padlet work? There's a video here that just shows you very quickly. So you copy out the link from the chat room, go on to a browser. You will see the remote learning icebreaker exercise. At the bottom, there's a plus sign. You add it, and then you would put in your comments. So quickly, if I could have everybody just put that in. The link is in the chat, right at the beginning, right at the top of the chat. So it was uploaded. Everyone able to locate it? Right, I will put that on the chat again. There it is. Okay. If everybody could take a moment. I can already see Florence has put in something. If you're not able to figure out, just see in the chat room, there is a link to a chat to Padlet. If you click on it, it'll automatically open to the Padlet site. The chat is right here in the chat itself. Kindly have a look. Nazia, the chat is 2 chats above your question. And Smita has shared it again. Thank you, Smita. I've got vibrant, I've got intelligent, active, tuned to technology, motivated, eager, enthusiastic, fantastic. Ready to learn, interesting, smart, interactive. Yeah, lifelong learners. Yes, they are, aren't they? Okay, interactive, some more interactives. Technology oriented, inquisitive, nation builders. Amazing. That's amazing. Right. Thank you so much for that. So the reason I asked that question, if you realize, there is no one way we can define our students because we don't get to choose the students that walk through our classroom doors. Students are students. They will join our classroom and we have to understand them and we have to understand how best we can teach them so that we can enhance their learning experience. Just a technology tip, it took 75 years for telephone to reach about 100 million users. It took Facebook about 5 years to reach 100 million users, and it took Pokemon Go less than a month to reach 100 million users. Now, why is this information important? It's important because we want to know what kind of technology we are actually competing with in our classrooms when are teaching our students, and we want their attention. What's more, students on an average spend about 7.5 hours online being connected, which kind of makes them the digital natives. They were born into technology. They know a lot more about this than we do. And because of this, we want to ensure we move away from that whole concept of one size fits all, and we move more towards a student-centric learning. And that's where really technology plays a huge part in helping us create what's called a personalized learning experience platform. What is personalized experience? It's basically understanding your students, understanding how they learn, what kind of learners they are. Do they learn better while doing something? Do they learn better because they've read something or heard something? So understanding our students and then being able to mold that content so that we are able to actually enhance their real learning experience, and therefore ensure that our learning objectives for the courses we are teaching have actually been met. So, because we're talking about blended learning, what I'm going to do now is quickly start a poll on the WebEx form to ask you guys, have you used technology in the classroom before March 2020? So that's an interesting question I'm asking. The poll has just opened. If you can see it. Yeah, I've got quite a few people answering. That's fantastic. Okay, that's great. All right, if we could have some more people put in your poll so we can have an idea. Yes, okay. Okay. Quite a few of us have actually used technology, yet blended learning isn't something that a lot of us are still comfortable about for a lot of reasons. Maybe we didn't come from a classroom where we were exposed to the kind of teaching methods with technology, or because the material that we are teaching I haven't learned or haven't seen how this can be molded to adapting technology. So there are a variety of reasons why we still don't have a very big uptake of blended learning in classrooms or using technology in classrooms. Although we may have used some form of technology for sure, most of us would have. So that brings me now to, of course, the present topic, which is COVID-19. The whole reason we are here today is to discuss how we look at learning and teaching in crisis. So COVID-19 has actually been a very big disruptor in the education sector. As educators, you all understand this because it almost felt like overnight that we had suddenly become digital teachers and remote lecturers, uh, figuring out how, as we went, how to get everything online and how to ensure our students were learning and to continue the process of learning. So COVID-19 has been, in the last decade, the biggest disruptor that we have seen in education to date. The biggest reason, of course, is that we have had schools closing everywhere. If you look at the statistics, it's a little scary. We've got about 1.5 billion students in the whole world that have actually been affected by this. That's 91% of all learners across 188 countries. In UAE alone, we've got about 1.5 million students who are now learning digitally. The expectation when we started this was that we're going to shift all our content to the digital platform. We are going to shift the course delivery to on an online platform, and we're going to deliver a subject remotely. It sounds fantastic. It sounds so easy because everyone is connected, right? We've got 3 billion devices that are connected at the moment. So obviously, that's fantastic statistics. So it's easy to say, let's just start teaching students online. What could be more easier than that? Well, we couldn't be further wrong because you've all been experiencing this for the last few weeks. A few of the challenges, of course, the biggest one is feeling of isolation. And a lot of teachers have shared this over the last few weeks about how they're just feeling so isolated. They're feeling so alone because they're feeling they don't have anybody else who understands this. The newness of the technology, while I may have just been using PowerPoint. Now I'm suddenly expected to use Nearpod, or I'm expected to use Socrative, and a whole lot of other fancy technologies, which I've not used, or maybe I've tried to avoid using in the past. So the newness of this whole concept of teaching completely online versus having at least some form of traditional classroom connection with my students. Lack of prior experience itself. So it's not just the technology, but it's also the experience. How many of us have had a remote teaching experience where we've delivered our classes 100% online and through distance learning strategies? The digital divide among students. So what do I mean by digital divide? Basically, it just means people who have and people who don't. So students who have access to devices. And now you might be thinking, how is that even possible that students don't have access to devices in the 21st century? Well, we do have plenty of students out there who may have just one parent with a device, or just one device among 2 or 3 children, or even, for instance, only the father or the mother's mobile phone that has the data that the student's going to be using. So when we say digital divide, we don't necessarily mean in the truest sense. Uh, in a lot of ways, we are lucky because we are in UAE, so we've got the latest technology at the tips of our fingers. But we still do have students out there, even in UAE, who don't necessarily have access to internet, to an individual device, or even to a quiet space where they could sit and engage with you and your subjects and the classes. So digital divide has actually taken on new meaning in this moment of crisis that we are all facing. And of course, the simple fact that we've not had time to understand our student needs and the barriers they may be facing to learning. We know our students, we know how to handle situations in a physical classroom, but teaching suddenly and expecting suddenly to move to a remote classroom is something that is a huge challenge, and it throws that challenge at us. Just a few snapshots from the UAE. So UAE, like I said, has been fantastic at facilitating remote learning for teachers and schools and students and parents across the country. So in a way, I do feel that we are very privileged to be in this country at this point. They have, for instance, right at the cuff, they started offering parents who did not have internet access to free internet so that their children could study. They've been looking at raising funds so they could buy devices for students who, again, do not have access to individual devices or don't have access to devices at all. So from that perspective, I think we are lucky that we have that governmental infrastructure that's coming into place to help us and our students. So how do we go forward? Of course, there are many challenges, and that's what usually puts us off from anything new that's thrown at us. But there's always a way around, and we are hoping that after today's session, you will find some of the tips that I share with you guys today very useful and handy to take back to your daily experiences. So the first thing that I will start off with is understanding yourself and your students. And the reason I start with that is because the teaching starts with me. Whether it's a physical classroom or a remote classroom, the teaching really starts with me, the teacher. So it's very, very important then for me to be myself. Usually, if I suddenly had to do a video conferencing, I would spruce myself up. I would really work on what I'm going to say, how I'm going to say it, write it out, have it all ready. And it was just going to be for an hour or 2 hours. But it's not like that anymore. This is a continuous process. And currently, we are even looking at the remote learning all the way till the end of the academic year. So it's very important that as teachers, you relax and you be yourself. The reason being, if you are going to be tense and if you're going to be nervous about coming online, your students are going to read that off of you. And the reason I want you to be yourself is, again, these are your students. You've already been teaching them. If you're school teachers, you've been teaching them since September. So you know these students and they know you. Level of expectation now that you are online. But the level of expectation as a teacher is not that different from when you were going to be standing in front of your students. The reason being, the students still expect to learn from you. They're still looking up to you to deliver the content. So when you are yourself and you're comfortable in front of a camera and conducting a remote classroom, that will trickle down. A very key thing to remember is just stay calm. And I think today's session kind of gave us an idea of some of us out there who are a little bit nervous and some of us who are a lot eager, but at the same time, teaching us that it's very, very important to stay calm. Students will follow your lead. If you get nervous and you start pressing things and you start, looking flustered, students will do that as well in your classroom. So be able to manage that level of discipline. You need to first be yourself and be calm. Do be positive. Be calm, have a very, very calm mood in your classroom, and you decide the pace for your class. And as an example, I will tell you, for instance, today I said at around 3:10, I said we would start the session in 10 minutes. Now the pressure was there because I could see that a lot of people had already entered the room. And at the same time, I had some messages from people on the chat asking me to, can you please start? We've been waiting. So that pressure will be there even from your students at different stages when you're in the classroom. But it's very important for you to stay calm and stick to that pace that you have promised for the class, because not everybody is going to be able to keep up to the pace of all the children in the classroom. So again, keeping that pace is up to you as well. And very, very important, please take care of your mental health and be positive. So if you are stressed out and if you are feeling down and if you are feeling overwhelmed, that is going to trickle down into your teaching, and your students will, even if they're not in front of you face to face, even in a remote classroom, they will bounce off of that. And that's the caution that I've put in there. If you're stressed and fiercely uncomfortable, students will pick up on these vibes, and it could go either or. Either they will become nervous and they'll become very uncomfortable, or they will just totally switch off from you, and you don't want that to happen. The next is to understand your school or your institution. Now, when I say that, this is what I actually mean. The first thing to do is find out what your school wants you to do, how much of this they want from out of you. Do they want a 100% live classroom? Do they want you to be able to record sessions or make some materials available? Or what is it that your school is asking off of you? Because please remember, your school knows the teachers, the school knows the expectation. So they will set that expectation automatically of their teachers based on the experience they have with their teachers and their learning system that is in place. Be comfortable with the technology the school uses. Could I kindly please ask whoever that is to mute your mic? Thank you. Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, so it's very important that you're comfortable with the technology that your school uses. I will get to that in the next slide a little bit more in detail, but it is important to remember that if your school is using a particular system, there is a reason why they're using that system. And you're probably familiar already with the system that they're using because you've been with the school for, if nothing else, from September onwards. Find out what support is being actually made available to you from the school. Before you look outside and elsewhere, look into your school. They would have been looking at how to help their teachers. So find out first what that support system is. And again, the reason I ask you to first look to your school is because if your school is doing a training, they will do a training within the parameters of the school policy. If you're looking at outside help, that's not necessarily going to be in alignment with what your school expects out of you. And of course, don't be afraid to ask for help. That does not mean you don't know. It just means you're human and you've been thrown a ball that you did not ask for, and you need that help. We all have needed that help. Like I said, this is new and unknown territory for everyone, including your school's management. So while it might feel like they're overwhelming you, it might help to just keep telling yourself that, just to calm yourself and be in that positive mind of frame at all times. So understanding technology, naturally we're talking about remote learning. And when we talk about remote learning, you can't be remote without the technology. So it's very, very important for you to understand the technology. So what I have done is just for everyone's reference, I'm going to give you a very, very brief overview of how this whole remote learning thing actually works. I won't go into a lot of technical aspects, but I think once you understand the overview of this, it will actually help you figure out how best to work around your content and your classroom delivery. So the very first thing is, of course, the authorship, the development of the content that you're going to be delivering. I will talk about content after this, but generally you are, again, the person who is developing that content, deciding how much of that content is going to be presented through a Word document or a PowerPoint presentation, or maybe you've put something on OneNote. There are a variety of applications and softwares that teachers have either through their schools or even through online that they can actually use to prepare their content. Once you've prepared it, then we move on to what is called a learning objective repository. Learning objective, everybody knows what a learning objective is. Basically, the idea is to.
ब्लैक में म्यूट है, ये रेड में क्या है?
Hi, somebody has unmuted their mic again. If you could just mute, thank you. Okay. So learning objectives repository is nothing but basically taking all that content that you have now created. It could be quizzes, it could be the lesson plan, the actual lesson itself, a variety of things that you have prepared for your subject, which then gets stored in either a physical server somewhere or a cloud server somewhere, and then gets accessed, updated. And finally, the learning interface. Now, the learning interface, again, is a combination of softwares that are out there, from Blackboard to Moodle, could be a Google Classroom, of course, Microsoft Teams, all of that combined together that allows you to then communicate the information that you have created and the content that you have developed to your students. And again, to a variety of devices, because students aren't just joining from their computers. They could be joining from a mobile phone or tablet, etc. So this is basically, guys, a framework that kind of gives you an overview of how this whole remote learning or blended learning works. Now, why is it remote or blended? Because blended means I could have an element of course, classroom delivery and then online, whereas remote is 100% online. But this framework that I've just showed you pretty much covers learning online, either 100% or with an element of classroom. It's again very important to remember. Please verify with your school what you plan to use in line with their vision of your remote learning. So, understanding the technology, please be comfortable with the technology you use. Don't start fiddling with something brand new just before you start a class, or okay, I have never used something, but I think it sounds like fun. Let me try and use it. Don't use it for the first time when you're doing a class. Remember, right at the beginning, I said you need to be comfortable and you need to be yourself. If you're trying out a brand new technology, the thing that's going to happen is there's a good chance if there is something that goes wrong, or if a student asks you a question about why is this not happening or why is that not happening, you will not have an answer, and that might fluster you. So don't attempt to use something brand new for a class directly. The suggestion that I have is what I do. I will, if I'm trying out a new technology, I will actually set it up. I will have somebody try that out for me as a student so that I can see what all are happening. How are they communicating with the system? Are they seeing the same thing I'm seeing? Are they actually interacting with the system the way I want them to interact with the system? So going blindly and just saying, oh, this is a nice software, let me just use it, and not the best suggestion. Don't attempt to use technology just because someone else did. Again, this is one of those things where you might see or hear a lot of people use fancy words with technologies. It doesn't necessarily mean that's the greatest or the perfect fit for you, your class, and your students. So thinking simple might sometimes actually be the best way to ensure a very smooth learning experience for your students and a smooth teaching experience for you. I'll give you another example. We do a lot of recorded sessions where we actually create content, we record the content, and then we make it available to our students so that they can come and go at their pace, have a look at the content, interact, do activities at their own pace. A lot of people will use a lot of fancy video editing softwares, I use PowerPoint. It's simple, it's easy, everybody has it. And PowerPoint actually is very strong tool. Try it out. It's a nice software to use it. I did, it's nice. I make videos with it. I upload it to YouTube. I make it available to my students. So thinking simple sometimes actually helps. Somebody has said, can't hear anything. Is my voice coming in okay to everyone?
It's coming very clear.
It's clear, Dr. Zinat, if you can mute everybody from the participant menu.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please, Dr. Zinati, I can speak. Dr. Zinati, please, can I speak? When, please? I want to ask you if you can send this PowerPoint with me and our teacher because I can't speak English very good. Until I want translate this is PowerPoint and reading. Thank you. I am Mr. Zakaria. Thank you.
So you'd like translation of the slides? Is that what you're asking?
If you can send the PowerPoint with me, because I want to translate this is until I understand all in the knowledge in this is PowerPoint, because I can't speak English is very good or good. Little, not good.
Got it.
Can you?
So
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
Mr. Ahmed is here in the session with us from University of Wollongong in Dubai. I will share the slide with him, and I think he will be able to share that with you guys.
Yes, please.
And
Yes, please.
and yeah, sure, that's not a problem at all.
Thank you
Sure.
so much. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Doctor.
All right. So coming back to understanding the technology. So yes, there are a lot of technologies out there for you to use if you're comfortable using it. If you're the kind of person who is very tech savvy, you pick up something, you look at it, and you know instantly how to use it, go for it, because your students will love it. But if you're not, and if you're a little tech averse, don't attempt it for a brand new class. Attempt it over the weekend. Get somebody to help you look at it so that you can try out some sessions with them. Even though I do this on a daily basis, the moment I'm about to do a live session, I will have people test my session for me. And I will always have that 15 minutes, 10 minutes before class to see if everything is working for everybody before we actually start the content delivery. So being comfortable with the technology that you use is very, very important. And that, again, feeds back into you being comfortable with yourself when you're actually in a remote classroom. Again, just a quick caution, it is easy to get swept up with the wave and lure of fanciful tools. Only use tools that you are sure of. Okay, now we move on to understanding the content that we are actually going to be delivering. Everybody has subjects that they're teaching. You've probably been teaching, some of you have been teaching this subject for a very, very long time. So you know the content inside out. But what is important is remote teaching isn't the same as traditional classroom teaching. If you are teaching, let's say you're doing math, and you are going to practice 10 exercises in a 40-minute class, great. You will probably ask 10 different students to help you solve that for you. But you will have a class of 27 to 30 students in your class at that moment. So think about what I have just said. You have 30 students, you have actually just done 10 exercises, and only 10 students have solved it, not all 30. All 30 probably haven't even solved all of them. But when we do remote learning, the thing is, what attracts us is, oh, we've got the 10 exercises. We'll put it out there. We'll tell students, go for it, attempt all 10. What you have effectively now done is increased your students' load by 10 times. In a traditional classroom, they would not have been doing those 10 exercises in a 40-minute class. But suddenly, when you're remote, you're asking them to do those 10 exercises, because normally in a traditional classroom, you would have been solving those 10 exercises with the class. But doing something with the class is not the same as asking each student to do the exercise. So when you are doing remote learning, you need to rethink your content. It is very, very crucial that you rethink the actual content that you're going to be delivering. Like I said, remote delivery is not the same as traditional classroom delivery. You need to think about the speed of delivery that you can do. In a traditional classroom, you can actually fend off of a student to know whether they're being able to keep up with you. So you can increase the speed, lower the speed, based on the class. But when you're in a remote class, it's not always possible for you to keep a track of every student who is in your class and to see whether they're able to keep up with the pace. So you need to rethink, what am I going to be delivering? So don't try to replicate a classroom content. Focus instead on the learning objective. So if I was going to be teaching a particular topic and I was going to do 10 exercises for it, let's go back to that topic and look at how can I now teach it as if I was just teaching it to that one student who's staring at me, and not 30 students. So think of it from that perspective. What is my learning objective? What do I want my student to learn from this content that I'm delivering? Then decide on the balance between synchronous and asynchronous content delivery. What do I mean by synchronous and asynchronous? Means going live and making material available to your students. Again, something we automatically think remote learning means I have to be live for the whole 30 minutes, 40 minutes of my class, sitting and talking to students. That's not what remote learning is all about. You need to understand where to draw the line with your content, because if you keep talking for 40 minutes, even in a normal classroom, think about it. Students, maximum 15 to 20 minutes is their attention span for any chunk of time. So after 20 minutes, they're not really listening. So in a traditional classroom, you would then think of ways to keep them engaged with the content. And you have to do the same thing when you're actually delivering content remotely. Don't just think I have to be live. If I have to be live, maybe my student is not going to be able to keep up with my pace. Maybe my student does not have the internet connection speed that they need to stay with me live for 40 minutes straight. So you have to take into consideration all your students are not going to be able to stay live with you for a live 40-minute class. So what do? You go for what is also called asynchronous content delivery, something that is spaced out by time. So you make it available, you tell them, okay, so you've got 20 minutes now, or you could come back and look at it, and we could look at it another 15 minutes later, 20 minutes later. So you give them that content available in another form that they can then access, and that they don't have to be live with you at that moment to access it. And that brings me to the last point in this topic, which is about off-screen time. As teachers, I think more even as parents, you would have already realized that amount of screen time the students have suddenly been exposed to. It is humongous, what the pressure that we have suddenly put on students. The pressure is on us, of course, as teachers as well. But for students, when they've never done this before, suddenly they're expected to be online for specific amounts of time and actually connecting and engaging with content. That's very, very tiring. And it has a huge physical impact and mental impact on children. So actually thinking about your content in terms of live and off live is actually also fantastic for your students, because it gives them that off-screen time away from the screen. So Sumaya has asked, is this necessary to give online lessons? Again, depends on your school, what they have asked you to do, but generally no school will ask you to give 100% online lessons. So you might want to think about, what am I going to talk to my students about when I actually start a class? Maybe I'll just use the time to give them instructions, and then I will direct them to the content which they can then engage with. I teach a variety of levels of students in the university. I've got freshman students who've just joined from school, so they're 16, 17, 18 years old. And then I teach 300 level, 400 level students who are just at the cusp of graduating. So what I have done, for instance, with my younger students is, it is not live. I have from a 2-hour class, I will have 30-minute live where I will talk to them about the subject. I'll talk to them about the specific topic that particular class is about. And then I will direct them to our learning management platform where I have segregated the content. I've made short 5 to 8-minute videos, which tells them about the particular content, and it adds a quick quiz or a quick exercise for them to practice. This works well with my freshman students. With my 300 level students, because they're more matured, they're more interested because they're about to graduate, I have a 100% live classroom. Of course, also because the subject that I'm teaching is very different. It requires more interaction from them and so on. So really, when you're thinking about your content, there's a lot to think about before you just jump in and go and start having a live class with your students and for your subject. So then comes, of course, understanding assessments. Now, this is very interesting because this is the latest development that we've had here, where now we know that we are going to be doing remote learning all the way till the end of the academic year. That obviously means we need to now think about our assessments. And I know a lot of teachers who've just come back and said, oh, great, I'll just give them a quiz. And I actually know of teachers who've shared experiences with me where they've given 2-hour online exam with 200 quizzes, MCQs online. Okay, so need to take a pause before you just jump in and say, this is again so easy. Just like teaching remotely isn't easy, even thinking about assessments remotely isn't easy. You need to first think what needs to be assessed. You've been teaching since September. You have had a term or 2 terms in between already. You know your students. You know how they have engaged with the subject and with the content. You know their abilities where that subject is concerned. So since the remote learning has started, now it's time to take a moment and think, what more do I need to assess for these students? So it's not just about going back and looking at the content. It's about the learning objective for that particular subject and that particular content. So reassess what needs to be assessed, reassess when and how you need to be assessing them. So very easily, you could be doing this as something that is cumulative. You're constantly asking them questions and ask them to unmute their mic and answer a question, and you've taken down whether they have actually engaged and understood the content. Could be something like that progressively increases. Or you could be thinking of actually fun quizzes that you're doing with them. You could have proctored online exams. There are options there as well. So there is a variety of ways for you to then rethink what my assessment means to me for this particular subject. Rethinking remote assessment methods, like I said, there's a variety of things that are out there, from portfolios to online quizzes, of course, to case studies, to asking kids to make a video. You've got fantastic tools. A lot of schools are using, from Nearpod to Flipgrid. Of course, you just engaged with Padlet today, so you saw how that is very quick. What's key is to remember to also be giving them feedback about what they're doing. This is what they are missing out as students when there's remote learning happening, because they're not able to constantly connect with you. You have a class of 30, 40 minutes and you're done. But remember, in a traditional classroom, students would be coming up to you when you've given an exercise to the whole class if they had a problem or if they had an issue. Somebody just raised their hand. Did they have a question?
No, doctor.
All right, thank you. So thinking about that perspective, that you're not there with them, and there is this this distance there now between you and your student when you're thinking of assessments, because all of this is very new for students as well. If you're nervous, imagine how nervous they must be. And let's not even get into discussing parents, because they're probably going off the roof worrying about their children. So thinking about, how am I going to make sure that I'm able to still assess my student on that learning objective, and not making this something obsessive about, oh, I have to test them. Single content that I have taught. It's not always going to be possible when you're doing remote learning. And again, find alternate ways to assess that can be live or that can be separated by time. Okay, guys, I've put up a quiz. Make sure you go sometime during the week, have a look at it, and answer the question. Could be something as simple as that. I use Flipgrid a lot for my ethics course, where I tell students, go in. I've opened it up for you guys. Please make sure you read the question and put in a voice message. So they will record it and they will keep it during the week. They will they will record it during the week. And I will go in over the weekend and I will look at what they have said and what they have done. And then I will put in a nice little rubric. I will put down what I thought about their recordings and I will send it back to the students. So understanding the assessment, understanding how I'm going to assess them, and at the same time giving them that feedback is going to be very crucial in a remote learning platform. And again, a caution, please find out what your school is deciding for assessments, particularly for final exams, and do get on board with it for your students, because buy-in from you is very important. What do I mean by that? If you are averse to whatever the decision is, trust me, your students will know and they will feed off of that. And that will impact them and their mental well-being and their performance as well. Finally, the last topic, what I want to quickly look at is integrity and netiquettes. So when I say integrity and netiquettes, what I'm talking about is not just the assessments that we've talked about, of course that, but also behavior and conduct when we are in a remote platform.
Ma'am,
Yes,
ma'am, can I ask you a question? Sorry to interrupt.
sure.
Yeah, about these assessments.
Mhm.
Yeah, are there specific softwares available that we can use, for assessments? Because, end of the year, end of the academic year is coming for us. And if we would like to share, if you have some ideas about the
Okay.
softwares.
There are a variety of softwares actually out there. And what I have done is at the end of the presentation, I also have links to resources. And one of those links is to UNESCO, who has like a long list of you could use them. So the idea is also not just to jump onto a software, but to again first understand what is it that I'm going to assess, how am I going to assess it, how does my school want me to assess it. And they may actually have ideas about what they want you to do. Remember what I said, we are all in this for the first time. So even a lot of school management are figuring this out as they go. And we've literally just had like 2 weeks of notice right now where it said, we are going to be doing this till the end of the academic year. So they're also figuring this out and they will come back and talk to you guys about it. There are softwares, like I said, something as simple as Nearpod. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of this software. This is how it's spelled. It's a fantastic software. It allows you to set up quizzes, allows you to set up fun games. It also allows you to do collaboration. Yes, it's an online app. Do collaboration between students. So that's an example. Then there's another one called Socrative, which is a little like Kahoot, but a little bit more serious than Kahoot. So Socrative allows you to, again, do quizzes which are live, and at the same time, you could also set up something that students could get to at any time on their pace. Then there's something called Scholastic. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of it. So, again, this is something that allows you to, so there are, guys, a variety of softwares, that are out there online. A lot of them are free, which allow you to set up assignments and tests and quizzes. But the key here isn't just to jump on a software, first to understand what is my school asking us to do? Are they providing us with a platform where we can do this? Or are they asking me to then go, yes, Lynette said Edmodo, Google Forms. These are all fantastic and they're all free. And the best part has been about remote learning for the whole world is a lot of these softwares have come forward as their social responsibility, and they have actually offered it free for the teachers globally everywhere. So there are plenty of softwares out there, but it's more about what am I going to be using and what am I expected to use from my school rather than what else is there to use. Just setting up assessments and softwares and content delivery could, could be a very well be another webinar that we do, which could go on for an hour, hour and a half. Unfortunately, I don't think we've got the time here today to do that. So I'm just providing with a general, framework. And if you guys are interested in a follow-up webinar, please do let Mr. Ahmed and myself know, and we will look at how we can best provide that for you guys. So coming back to integrity and netiquettes. One thing to remember is that students don't necessarily cheat more or less when online. And trust me, I'm telling you this from experience. My basic teaching and research area is student cheating. I did a PhD on student cheating, trying to figure out why students cheat, what kind of technologies they use, and so on. And I've been doing this research since 2005. So trust me when I tell you, students don't necessarily cheat more or less when they're online. We feel that, oh, that's it. Students are going online, they must be cheating. That's not necessarily true. It depends a lot on us, how we are dictating that assessment, how we're designing that assessment, and of course, reducing the risk. If I go back and tell my students that, yes, you will have a final exam, you're going to still be marked out of 100, and it's going to be just as important as it was going to be had you had a real physical final exam. Students are going to really have a hard time with this because they are also nervous. So taking away that, that risk factor of focusing on marks, we need to keep going back and telling them how important right now this learning process is. So that's what we need to be looking at. When you're doing any kind of assessments, when you're doing classes, just revisit the school policy with your students. Don't just assume, of course, they know cheating is bad. Don't assume that. In today's world, with a lot of the global leaders and role models that students have, that's not just something we can take for granted. I will give you an example. Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg is somebody who a lot of students look up to. They want to be him. They want to be like him. They want to be as famous as him, as rich as him, as smart as him. But here's the thing. Number of times over the years in interviews, he has said he's okay to be unethical as long as he is legal. So when you have role models like that, you cannot, as a society of teachers who are there to groom students in their classrooms for the future, to just take it for granted that my students know that cheating is bad. It's always good to revisit these policies and talk to students about it. Remind students that the rules that they have in the remote classroom and the remote space is the same as a physical campus, and that's called netiquettes. A lot of people will automatically assume because students, for the very first time, most of them are connecting and communicating with teachers and friends on a professional level. That's what we need to remember, because even if they've had apps, they've got phones, they're WhatsApping each other and their friends and parents. That's a very informal space. This space, their remote classes, their remote exams, quizzes, whatever it is, it's a formal space which they have not used and have not interacted with at this level before. So it's very important to remind students that the rules that apply in a physical classroom. Okay, sorry, could I just ask one more time somebody to mute your mic? Thank you. So it is very important to make sure you remind your students that the rules are the same. Sorry, one more time. Somebody has unmuted their mic. Thank you. All right, take the time to talk about why students should focus on learning rather than run after the marks. Something that I do with my freshman 100 level students is I remind them that the subject and the topic that they're learning now is very crucial, because this semester we finished. Let's say we are back to a normal regular class semester in September, where they will take the next subject to this one that they're currently doing. That teacher is not going to spend time revising what was done in this semester. They will want to move on with the content of that subject. And this subject would be their prior knowledge. And ultimately, they will start falling behind if they have not caught on the content that is being delivered. So keeping that as the focus and getting your students to understand the importance is learning, not the marks. But having said all of this, of course, please don't obsess over cheating with your students and don't tell them, don't do this and don't do that. And don't tell them about the actual technology and what you do or don't want them to do, because you could actually be giving them ideas and tips on what to do and how to get around the system. And finally, with integrity and etiquettes, the best thing, we are not cops, they're not robbers. We can't even play that game with them because we would lose if history is anything, people. We need to focus on building trust and respect and actually developing that culture of integrity with our students so that they don't feel the need to cheat. Just a caution, you are your students' role models. Please lead by example. I'm not sure if you have noticed a lot of in my slides, whenever I have taken content which is not mine, I have actually given the source. So if the image was not mine, I've given the source. For instance, in this slide currently, you will notice there is a little rat on a dynamite and a caution. These are from Pixabay. Pixabay gives you free, I'm just writing that out on the chat so everybody gets an idea of what the website is. So Pixabay gives you free images. Don't just go to Google and start taking things. That's the common misconception that because it's Google, it must be free. It's not. It's copyrighted content that belongs to somebody else. And when we use somebody else's work without giving them credit, we are actually telling students that this kind of thing is okay. And then that trickles down to when they're doing their exercises and they're doing their work and they start copying from other people and thinking it's okay. So Pixabay is a fantastic website that allows you to use free images. You don't need to cite them because they are called royalty-free images. So you're most welcome to use this site for any kind of work that you do. They have fantastic images in there. They've got cartoons, they've got a lot of serious images, a variety of topics, and there are a lot of websites like that that provide you with royalty-free content that you can actually use. If you are using something from Google which is not royalty-free, please make sure you are, of course, citing it. So you leading by example is very, very crucial to maintaining that trust and respect with students. If you off the cuff start off saying, students, I know you will cheat, they will have no respect for you. They know you have no respect for them. And they are then going to be inclined to cheat. So that's very important to remember. So some final takeaways from this session. Please relax and be yourself. Please understand the technology that you're going to use. Learn the technology, practice it, be very comfortable with it before you actually use it in your classroom. Rethink your content. How do you want to deliver it? How much of it do you really need to deliver? Decide on live or offline delivery of your content itself. Decide on live or offline assessments of that content. And don't forget to be kind. Be kind to yourself, and especially, please, be kind to your students. You, as teachers, we are all that I started with. It asked, how are you doing today? Something as simple as that really elevates a student's mental well-being and their connection with your content and you. And of course, give yourself a break. This is not something that is easy, and all of us are in it with you.
Scandals happen all the
Just
time.
a quick thing before we go. I'm not sure if you guys remember this from about 2 years ago.
For the wider region, I think one of your children's just walked in. I mean, shifting sands in the region, do you think relations with the North may change?
I would be surprised if they do. Pardon me. Pardon me. My apologies.
The reason I have shared this, I wanted you to remember it happens to the best of us. That's not the end of the world, because we have the capacity to set the pace, the environment, and the mood that is actually conducive to learning. Just like when we are in a physical classroom, things can go wrong. We need to remember things can go wrong remotely as well, and it's not our fault. Do create that environment for your students and for yourself, because these are difficult and dangerous and very disturbing times for everyone, students, parents, teachers, everybody. we are not in this alone, and that's what you need to remember. Yes, we are social distancing, so it might feel like you're all in this very, very alone, and it's a very lonely journey. But do understand, it is not. It doesn't have to be a lonely journey. Your peers, colleagues, friends, family, the greater community. We as a university, we take our social responsibility very, very seriously. And we talked about this, and we said, hey, we should do something like this so that we can get the word out to teachers out there. If we've got something that could benefit the community, why not share it? So you will be surprised at the kind of support that you will actually get from everywhere when you're teaching and trying to continue learning for your students. So here's a handful of the resources that we will, of course, share with you. I think Mr. Ahmed will, and they will be fantastic. With that, I come to the end of today's session. Any questions? If you could please just raise your hands, and then we will ask you. So any questions, guys? Anybody has any questions? Do just put in your, don't just unmute. Okay, can you show the resources slide? Okay, why don't I do this? I will show you guys a couple of things online so that you can have an idea of how these work. Let me open up slides for you. Just give me 1 second. And in the meantime, if anybody has any questions.
Dr. Zina, there was a question earlier during the session about what different types of software do you use in teaching remotely?
In teaching remotely or assessments?
No, teaching.
Teaching. So what we use is we use a learning so the first thing that we start off with is the learning management platform, and which is the Moodle for us. Some of you might be using Moodle Cloud, some of you might be using Microsoft Teams, some of you could be using Google Classroom. So there's a variety of these out there. So the one that we use at the university is called Moodle. And what's fantastic about Moodle, the way we use it is it allows you to provide information remotely, live, or separated by time. So again, that's just one example. And like I said, there are resources that we can share with you. Let me see if I can just put them here.
Hello, doctor.
Yes.
Can I talk?
Yes, please.
Thank you. First of all, my name is Khadija, and then I really would like to thank you very much for your time, for your precious information. It's really amazing for me. I don't know for others, but I'm talking about myself. As a first time, today was my first time teaching online.
Yes, how did that go?
Oh my God, I was like, oh my God. And then immediately I finish at 3 o'clock, and then I have to jump into your session. Yes, and then the problem is my laptop was that disconnected, the internet and all these things. So I came late, and yes, it was for me. It's really, really, really amazing. Thank you very much. One small request, please. As you said in your talk, in your session, that in your speech, that you said you will be providing us with the information and the websites, and that we can use it, because it's really, yes, please.
Yes, for sure, I will. I think Mr. Ahmed is still there from the University of Wollongong. And
Yes,
I
I'm
think
here,
he's the
Dr.
one, yeah. So I will share my slides with Mr. Ahmed, and please, Mr. Ahmed, feel free to share them with everyone. And the slides will have all the links and resources that you can then access. And I've given you a variety of resources, from news articles to UNESCO sites. And there are some fantastic sites that actually talk about how you can use them, where you can go, and things like that. Because even for creating content, you have to understand that content might already be existing. Let's not reinvent that wheel. And you could just easily use content that's already there. So my resources, the links, also have those websites in there. So hopefully that's going to be helpful.
It will, believe me, it will, because it's something new for us. And then, oh my God, I have to study every application, every program for 3 days in order for me to use it with my students.
Yes, yes. And we need to give ourselves that time to be comfortable with the content and the system that we're going to be using. That's fantastic. Congratulations on your first day. I hope you have a great remainder of the academic year.
Thank you very much. Same to you, ma'am.
For Zinat, there was a question as well about homeschooling. Do you believe that it can be considered as a good example of distance learning?
What do you mean? That should we move to homeschooling? Is that what you're asking?
This was the question of one of the participants, I believe. They asked if this homeschooling is a good example of distance learning. Maybe you could comment something on homeschooling.
No, homeschooling isn't distance. Okay, it's distance learning, sure, but it isn't remote learning in the concept that we understand, because the way remote learning works is you would have some kind of engagement with a teacher or an instructor. When it's homeschooling, your parents are the instructors and they're the ones setting the pace and deciding how much they want to do and so on and so forth. So plus you have to remember students need structure. They need socializing. I think in all this, what students are really missing out is hanging out with friends and making jokes and playing and running and falling down and scraping their knees and all of those things which actually make up their childhood experiences. So we want to ensure that we are able to rethink how do we go forward from here, because education is going to look very different, I think, once we are out of this. Okay, give some information about Zoom. So Zoom is basically, you see this WebEx that we are using. Zoom is just another software that allows you to do video conferencing. And you've got a variety of softwares like this which are out there. You've got Skype now, which is available to us. You've got Adobe Connect. You've got Google Hangouts. So there's a lot of software. Zoom is just, again, another software. Correct. Cecilia said interactive online modules are good. Sorry, somebody asked something?
Hangouts has a limit of participants, I guess.
Yes, it does. Most softwares will have the free offers, but if your school actually has an account with one of these, then they will have a very big number.
Oh, really? So it can be updated to a big number?
Yes. For instance, WebEx, because we have the account through the university, we can go up to 500 plus.
If you're not registered, what is the minimum?
Typically, for a free software, it's about 25.
Okay,
it depends on the software. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm from Arab Unity.
Somebody asked a very interesting question. Noha, should break time be part of distance learning? Don't you think it should be? Don't they need a break? Yes, I do feel that break time should be. And in fact, I do think we need to rethink how we provide this socializing platform for our students who may not otherwise be socializing with their friends. Older children, older students is easier because they're already probably on WhatsApp. But the younger ones, they're really missing out on hanging out with friends. And, even if you feel that, yes, no, my child is always on device, trust me, that school time was something that really helped them. So we need to, also as a community, think about how we can provide that platform for our children.
Okay.
Okay. Any more questions?
May I ask for a question?
Yes, sure, please.
Daud Ali. Ma'am, I want to ask you a question. Like now, today I did around 4 class from 8:20 until 1:50 continue classes, sitting on the chair.
Yes.
As I'm still young and still I'm strong, is okay. But what about the children? For 5 hours or 4 hours, continue the classes on the chair and looking to the screen.
Yes, that is
as a teacher sitting on the chair.
Yeah.
Before in the school, we are moving from section to section, from building to building, from floor to floor, break time, and this is not. I think so. There is something need, and now as a teacher, we have now something start. Now our back start paining.
Yes.
Our feet start become full. Our shoes is becoming small. I know now we are staying in a home, no problem for the shoes. I think there is something how to deal with that. This is
This is why I said, if you remember when I was talking about content and assessment delivery, that we need to think about, do we want them to 100% live with us for 40 minutes? And imagine from 8:30 to 1, if every teacher thinks being live is that important, we are actually forcing our students to be constantly connected to the screen. So we need to think of offline content and delivery. Okay, even if you've got 8:30 to 1 class, first period, for instance, it's a 40-minute class. So teacher comes in, talks for about 15 minutes, and then tells them, so go do this exercise, and then come back for the last 10 minutes, and we will discuss. So what you have effectively done is you have removed the student from that live atmosphere, and you're forcing them to move away from the screen. So that's why I said that it's very important to rethink the content and how we deliver the content. The class might still be 8:30 to 1, and we've got like 5 or 6 classes, but each class then needs to be able to deliver synchronous and asynchronous to give students that time off screen. They need that break for sure, as do you.
okay. If the teacher join new, for us it's like we have 6 years, 7 years, no problem. It's easy to communicate with our children. If the teacher just make a demo before yesterday, he joined science class, he's as a teacher online. He never seen Ali, Fatima, Muhammad, Abdul Karim, never at all.
Right.
Even the student, they never seen this teacher, only they know the name, or since when he opened his camera. So how the teacher, it will be rub with them, and how
to
it's so difficult.
rapport and
Because you know
relationship with
why?
their students.
Today they had one student in my class, and I didn't see him at all. He's joined new. So I'm teaching him the imagination, his house, his height, his weight, his face, how he understanding me. It's so difficult.
Well, if you're in a situation like that, what I would suggest is you actually spend first class actually getting to know your students. Talk to them about you. So start with you. Talk to them about, so this is me, this is what I like, this is what I'd like to do at my pastime. You know, I sometimes just bring in my daughter into the class now that we are remote, and I tell them, guys, this is my daughter and this is what she does. And so that helps to create that rapport with the students. And then they will start wanting to share with you about themselves, who they are, what they like, what they love to do. And you know what I have seen? Students love keeping their mics on. So, you know, and the cameras on. So get them to engage with you in that first couple of classes so that you get to know them and then continue with the content. Don't jump into the content. You're right. It's very important for us to, you know, create that relationship with them. And if this was a physical classroom, that's what we'd be doing first.
Okay, the last one, last things. And our student, when they attend the class, 21, 25, 26, or 30, when you see the attendance, 30, they report the class. So when you start the class, teaching them, the class is going very well. Suddenly you will ask question, yes, Muhammad, give me answer. Yes, Ali. So all in chat, they will give you, my mic is broken, my mic is broken, my mic broken. This is, and one thing, I want to give them just 10-minute break. I swear they will not come back at all.
No, now think about it. Think about a physical classroom. Say you've got 30 students. Do you think in every 40-minute class, all your 30 students are 100% attentive? They might be physically there, but are they really engaging with you and the content? Even in a physical class, that doesn't happen. So, you know, students will have off days. They will be tired. This is a very tiring environment. We may not think about it because we are not physically moving, but this is very hard on us mentally. Right? So students will switch off. One day, if one class they've switched off, it's okay. But if they repeatedly switch off from you, that's a concern. But you've asked them once this week. You usually have, let's say, 3 classes in a week. 1 week, 1 class, this student disappeared. Okay.
Last thing in my list, last thing. Okay, our student now, see our accommodation, 2 bedroom, 1 single bedroom. This is problem now. Yani yesterday I have class. Yeah, regularly I have a student always participating. If I don't want to give him chance, because I don't want to make the class only with one child to be communicate. So suddenly I ask, hello, open the mic, give me this sentence, what happened? He sent me a message in the chat, sir, I can't open because my sister is sleeping, my small sister is sleeping. So there's something like that also going on, especially, we are not staying in villa or something like that. This also, I think one of the negative.
It is. It's a huge challenge, and that's what I said at the beginning. That the digital divide that we call it. This is a part of that digital divide where students are not necessarily going to be able to engage with you because of where they are, what they have access to, and how they live. So when you think of content, again, think about that child. Would they be able to get back, have a look at that content over the weekend when they actually can switch on the site and look at the video and answer the question? Would you still be able to grade them and be fair to them? So that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Miss. Thank you.
Most welcome.
Thank you.
Miss, actually, I have a suggestion for that to what Mr. Daud said. Here it like your P teacher comes in when you have such kind of classes. They can help you out with different type of activities which students might like.
Yes. Somebody actually asked that. How can we make our more Amrin, I'm not sure you were there at the beginning when I said if we had to actually talk about content delivery, that would be a session by itself, because there is so much we can do to change, mold our content for online delivery. So there are ways you can think of small polls to do quick fun. Okay, guys, make a quick video and show me. Use the drawing board on the system, and they'll love doing that. So things like that are very, very crucial to keep students engaged with your content for sure. But again, they will have off days where they just go totally off.
Mom, you talked about involving another things that are not part of the lesson. For example, bringing your child in your class. Isn't that out of the objective? Of course, we are supposed to tell them things that are not part of the class to engage them. So I wanted to clearly to get it from you that you're saying if you're getting the class board, you keep it at hand and then you bring in something different to make sure they get engaged, which is not completely part of the class, but just to make sure they're engaged. So you're saying, is that 100% right to do when it's not part of my objective?
No, I was answering someone who said, how do we build a rapport with students that we have never met before? And, they've never met me. I have never met them. So how do we build a rapport? So that's when I said you could think of things that you do to introduce yourself so your students know who you are.
On the first day of meeting. Okay.
That is a prop. Your child is not a prop.
During the, okay. I was going to mess up. Tomorrow I was going to bring my daughter.
Oh, good gosh, please don't.
Sure, please. Thank you so much.
All right, okay.
Carry on, ma'am.
Okay.
Your session is so nice. You can stay until 6 o'clock, no problem. Continue.
No, I think we need to finish. Ahmed, are you still there?
Yes, Dr. Zinat, I'm here.
Yes. Are we good with time, or are we about to close?
I think that will be enough for today. I know Dr. Zinat, you also have classes to conduct and assess students. So you need to take care of that. Thank you very much, Dr. Zinat, for the session. It was very informative, I believe. I would like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of the teachers who attended. A special thank you to all the teachers across the country during these difficult times. We do appreciate your role in this essential time. In the UAE have reacted very fast and very responsive to COVID-19 situation. And I think the teachers played a very great role in that, especially during the time towards the end of the academic year. So thank you for your support. Thank you for managing the learning process for all the students. Initiative across the country. And I hope that you all benefited from this workshop. At the University of Wollongong in Dubai, we are trying to hold this kind of sessions just to support you all with all the tools and knowledge that you may need to be successful and effective in delivering your classes and assessments. So thank you very much again, and I wish you all the best, and we look forward to meeting you in other workshops in the future. So thank you, Tasinat, again.
Can I speak? Mr. Natha, can I speak?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Can I speak, Mr. Natha?
Yalla, go ahead.
I want to speak if I can.
Please, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Sorry. Lady, everyone calls you mom. I speak with you, my sister, because you're not old woman, you're young woman. We can speak about this is online learning. This is a new works. We must work anything until this is success. When we began, this is very difficult. After that, easy and easy and easy. After time, perhaps this is very excellent. I don't know this. My yeah. Assalamu alaikum. See you. Thank you, miss.
Thank you so much. Thank you for attending.
Thank you.
All right. Safe, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Stay home, stay safe, and all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cancel it, or I just need like 15.
Ma'am, Ms. Zinat, are you there?